and welcome to Adoption Pop, where a podcast journalist,
a filmmaker,
and a cultural critic burst pop culture's favorite adoption tropes.
Because we're adopted.
Normally, we begin this show with my asking the two of you something about whatever media that we're covering. But today we have a first. We're doing a show that I remember watching as a kid, and the two of you were too young to remember because I'm that old. So rather than feeling bad about myself, I am just going to thank Judi, who is one of our pop stars, one of our listeners, for suggesting from deep in the recesses of the Gen X nostalgia brain. And so if you remember this TV show, you probably need readers right about now. Family Ties premiered on September 22nd, 1982, and ran for 7 seasons on NBC. Like All in the Family before it and The Wonder Years after it, the show's engine was driven by the strife of national cultural shifts between generations. Parents Stephen and Elise Keaton are aging hippies, while their son, played by a 21-year-old Michael J. Fox in the role that would launch his career, was an unabashed Reagan conservative. It is perhaps just this same kind of intergenerational misunderstanding that leads the Keatons' neighbors, the Handelmans, to hide from their teenage son Skippy the fact that he's adopted. What? Kristal, what were your overall impressions of Family Ties?
Before we go there, I just want to say I am a millennial that identifies as a Gen X because
you can't do that.
I can and I am. I have brothers that are your age and I watched everything they watched. And so I had more exposure to these things than the average millennial.
Why? Look, I won't say everyone because I know Gen Z doesn't feel this way, but there's a whole swath of millennials that want to be Gen X, and you're either or Gen X or you're not.
All right. Kind of like you're either adopted or not.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, my first impression about Family Ties was that the writing was accurate from many angles. From the adoptee lens to the adopted parents lens to the birth mother's lens and even the friends walking alongside the adoptee. And I would say that a lot of the things that said could have been taken right from my own personal life script. And that's why it felt very true to me. And the only thing that I had a little bit of about was the imaginary bow tie that they finished the episode off with to tie everything up and make everybody feel good about adoption. So that was my first impression.
I kept waiting for it to be funny. Because it was a sitcom, right? Wasn't it supposed to be funny? There was a laugh track or a studio audience laughing, but I did not find it funny.
Did you grow up watching Family Ties?
No, I think this is the first time I've ever seen Family Ties.
Mm-hmm. I grew up on Family Ties, though I did not remember this episode. So that's why, again, kudos to Judi, who suggested this one. I had zero memory of this episode. I did remember the show. I remembered all the characters. And when I clicked play and that theme song started, it transported me back, big time. I had all the feels. And in the intro sequence, while the song is playing, there is this shot of Michael J. Fox, who plays Alex P. Keaton. He's a high schooler, and he slides across his room in his rolling desk chair, and he does this thing with his hands. He sort of, points down to some papers, and then he sort of puts his arms wide, and it coincides with the beat of the music, and that little sequence is so burned into my brain. I've remembered it all these years, and to see it again, like, really brought me back. I had a lot of feelings. To your point, Haley, none of which was that this is a funny show. Like, it was like nails on a chalkboard, quite frankly, watching the show. But that opener, man, like, whew, nostalgia, big time.
Sha-na-na-na.
I was hoping for that.
Gosh.
So, Skippy is the neighbor of the Keatons. He was a regular character played by Mark Price. And Skippy comes over at the beginning of the episode, and, you know, he does what neighbors do when they walk in the doors, which he announces he's adopted. No, really, he was looking through his mom's stuff, and he discovers that he is adopted. And by 3 minutes into the episode, 3 minutes in, he is saying, she's not my real mom anyway. 3 minutes in to the episode. Felt like a lot.
Well, I mean, I think it was indicative of his level of betrayal that he felt. And side note, did anyone else snoop in their parents' drawers? Because I totally did. Which, I am not a snoop now. Like, I would never snoop now. But I snooped through my mom's drawers. Like, I was looking for something.
I was not a snooper because I was afraid that she would find out. Like, my mom was into my stuff, like, pretty deeply. Like, and I had no privacy. And I think that number one made me hyper aware of other people's privacy. And also I think what was an irrational fear of surveillance myself. I remember hiding. I remember reading Blubber by Judi Blume, and it had the word damn in it a couple of times. And when I read it, I hid it under my bed because I thought my mom was going to see the word damn in this 200-page book and I was going to get in trouble. Like, that was the level of surveillance. Like, I had this fear of that, to that level of surveillance. So yeah, I was not a snooper.
I don't know why, but my body is responding with anxiety to that story.
Yeah, welcome to my life.
Like,
have you met me?
I identify with that, Sullivan, too.
Do
I
you?
did not snoop. I was worried I would get caught, and I was snooped on. And so I, like, where could I hide things in my room? Like,
Yeah.
I remember looking in my closet for, like, where's the best place to hide these papers or the writing I had, and feeling like nothing is secure enough.
Yes.
So.
The same.
okay, so he finds out that he's adopted and he starts calling his parents Mr. and Mrs. Handelman.
Not only that, he says, my name isn't Erwin Handelman. It's baby boy Doe. And he asks everyone to start calling him by his real name, which is baby boy Doe. And I also had baby girl surname on
Baby
my
girl, me
paperwork.
too. We had the same name.
Oh, baby girl.
Oh, baby girl. Actually, that was my second name. Baby girl was actually my second name because my first name was whited out and baby girl was typed on top of it.
Ooh, I don't know which order, but I also had a in-between name that was given by my mother. Kristal, were you a baby girl?
I have the little card from the hospital that they put, you know, in your little bassinet thing, and it says baby girl on
You
it.
were all baby girl.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's played for laughs, his wanting to be called baby boy. But I think we know a lot of adoptees, one of whom might be on this pod right now, who changed their name back to what was on their birth certificates. Or what would have been on their birth certificates had their biological mothers been allowed to name them. So this is played for laughs, but I think it is a real it's a real thing for a lot of adoptees in terms of identity reclamation.
So Skippy, or baby boy Doe, to Kristal's earlier point about the realism, as a late discovery adoptee, this is what he says. My whole life has been a lie. Nothing about me is what I thought it was. I don't even know who I am. I want to find my real parents. And I was like, this is so accurate to the late discovery adoptees I've spoken to. It's so upending. It's world shattering. And I think we see he's around 15 here, if I'm guessing correctly, because he doesn't quite have his driver's license yet. That's sort of what's implied. So 15, finding out you're adopted. Wow.
And in fact, we see a scene then. So he wants to find his real mother. And there is a scene with his parents, then his adoptive parents, who apparently not only know his biological mother's first and last name, but they know where she lives also. And they're debating with Steve and Elise Keaton, should we tell him? What did you think about that scene?
I wanted to punch those people. And they say the real things out loud, truly. So we should have told him a long time ago. We made a mistake. And they express a fear of if he meets his biological mom. Okay, sorry, I have my papers rattling here. If he meets his natural mother, is the language they use, then maybe he would choose her over them.
Yeah, and Elise says Skippy would feel better if you didn't show up with so much fear around this, and it would be more supportive to Skippy. And she says, but I am afraid. I'm terrified. And so again, just the honesty in this episode.
I liked Elise's response to that fear, and she's saying, like, it would be good for him, so he doesn't have to wonder. And I was like, yeah, like I was thankful for that comment.
Yeah, I thought that they supported him really well. The whole family supported Skippy so well. And the other thing was that they were all and I understand it's a sitcom, but they were all talking about it. They were all having conversations about it. They were giving their opinions and discussing it. And I appreciated that. As a family who we discuss everything and talk about everything and, hear everyone's sides, it was really good to see that.
I had a very different reaction to the one that the two of you are describing to this. And I recognize what you're talking about in terms of the words coming out of their mouths as being accurate, how people feel, certainly as, the things that Skippy is going through. But what I could not get out of my head was, Skippy as a character. So this particular episode is in season 2, towards the end of season 2. The characters in the show are very well established. As I said, Skippy is a neighbor. He's a recurring character, and he's a moron. I mean, that's the character. He's stupid. He says he gets a lot of laughs, but he gets a lot of laughs because he says really stupid things, and it allows Alex, the Michael J. Fox character, who is very intelligent. In fact, all of the Keaton children are intelligent in their own ways, to sound smart as compared to this idiot next door neighbor. And so when you have this idiot next door neighbor saying things like, my mom's not my real mom, call me baby boy, I need to find my real mother, it is very easy, I think, for the average viewer to dismiss him as ridiculous. And so for me, and you have this incessant fucking laugh track in the back. And so for me, I think an average viewer would have a really hard time seeing the real that you both are talking about. Number one is seeing the fears of of his adoptive parents, which are real, true fears. But I think the average viewer not just identifies with them, but actually I think probably thinks they're right. That it's okay that they didn't tell him for 15 years, and it's okay that their fears outweigh the right thing. And yes, Skippy is ridiculous to going to want to meet his quote unquote real mother, because we'll talk about real more, because like real keeps coming up. And I just like that it just really bothered me of these writers who decided for whatever reason to tell an adoption story, didn't even introduce a new character that maybe is going to show up one time, one and done, but they're going to make the idiot an adoptee so we can make him say idiot things or what people would assume or believe are idiot things.
Well, his adoptive parents come off to me as also stupid and clueless.
Yeah. Yes.
And so there's a commentary to be had there where it's like nature over nurture. Of course he's stupid. He's adopted. And he got adopted to this also idiot family who thinks Stephen and Elise are their best friends and would come to them if they needed something. So why wouldn't they come to I saw that too. And it's super common. And you're saying he's a regular character. I read that he doesn't actually get hired on as a regular until season 3. So past this episode. And so it's interesting that they outed him as an adoptee and you know, like had this whole storyline. And then it was like, oh yeah, we should keep him on because he's this. I mean, all I'm thinking of is Steve Urkel, because that's the show that I watched, like the nerd next door. But he was, you know, smart in some things, but socially stupid. This Skippy, he's, to your point about him being the idiot, like he's like, maybe I don't even need glasses, like, and he takes his glasses off, like, and it is disorienting if you find this secret's been kept from you. I liked, Kristal, what you said earlier about them actually having the open conversations about it, right? And right after this scene, just before Skippy goes to meet his mother, the other Keaton daughter, sorry, I'm not sure what her name is
Jennifer or
Jennifer?
Mallory?
The brown hair girl.
Mallory.
Mallory.
Justine Bateman. Oh my God, you're stabbing me in my Gen X heart right now.
First time I've ever seen it. I didn't think to write down her name, but Mallory says, how can a mother just give away her own baby? And I thought, interesting that they say that. And Sullivan, to what you were saying before, like, yeah, that is the picture of birth mother can't win. Like, you give your baby the better life because you love them so much. How can someone give their baby away? Like, it's mixed signals. And I liked that that was brought up. I actually watched this with my kids the second time. And we had a really good discussion about it, which I can share here, or maybe I can share a little later when it makes sense to do so. But I liked that they had that comment in there again. And the audience at the time would have been like, yeah, who can give a baby away? Shame the mother.
So I'm just going to speak to that because that is a real question that I have had. When I gave birth to my first child and was holding her, that was the first time I connected that my birth mother had to give me away. And I have remained with that question in my heart. Like, there must have been something very, very, very bad going on that a mother could give their own child away. And I don't say that to judge. I hope it doesn't come across that way. And I also, and maybe we'll get there when we talk about Skippy's reunion with his mom, but there are some mothers that really did make that choice that don't regret that choice. And that feels like that's my story and has left a very lasting impact on me.
Thank you for sharing that, Kristal. And I can't imagine what that feels like. But I can imagine it being incredibly difficult as well. And I think in the show, in Family Ties, as you said, we see Skippy's reunion. He goes to see his mother. I don't think she didn't regret her choice. That's not how I saw this. There is somewhat of a push and pull where he's wanting to share everything with her, everything that she missed for the first 15 years of his life, and wanting to connect with her. And he says at one point, I can come visit you every week. And she says, ultimately she says no, but she says that giving you up was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And she did what she thought was best. And so my viewing of it, for me, I saw and heard regret in that. I'm not saying that she wouldn't have made the same choice again. I don't think we're given enough information to know that or assume that. And I know that we've talked about on the pod before, and Haley, I'll look to you because this is so much of the work that you're doing, that birth moms feel they don't have another choice. They feel this is the only choice. They're lacking supports and those kinds of things. So when I say, like, we're not given enough information to know if she would make this decision again, presumably she felt like she didn't have support the first time around. We sort of know that from what she says. And so if she doesn't see any sort of universe in which there would have been support, then it would make sense that she would make the same decision again. But to me, that's not the same thing as not having regret. But that was just my take on what we saw.
Yeah, she says that was a difficult period in my life, and she doesn't really want to share information about the father, which again is really common in a lot of reunions with moms from adoptees that I've spoken to. I think I agree we don't have enough information, and Kristal, my heart is like, it's breaking to feel, to hear that from you and to know that that's your view on your situation. And I've talked to a number of mothers, and the mothers that I'm in contact with or have learned from, I'm going to say the majority of them express some form of regret and perhaps would make the same decision again. Again, I'm shortcutting here because we can say choice. A lot of them did not have a choice. A lot of them were forced into it, were in really difficult circumstances. And so regret over relinquishment and regret for not having a relationship with your child, or regret over your circumstances at the time. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can have regrets over and might make the same choice. I'm sad that I'm sad. I'm sad about that.
This episode triggered the shit out of me. It makes me so desperately sad. Do I think that she had some regret? Sure. do I think that this first mother, that the way they represented her is accurate? Yeah, I do. I've seen this. I've spoken to adoptees where this has been their experience. Can I allow my heart and my mind to go to a place of compassion that is maybe coming from a place of fear and pain and trauma? Yes, absolutely. But where I have a really hard time is we may not be responsible for what happened to us, but we're responsible for our own healing. And for us to not take that healing seriously, and then, this innocent adoptee comes along and just wants to say, hey, look, I don't really even want anything from you. I just have a suitcase full of things that are going to show you who I am. Do you see me? I just want to know who you are. I just want to see what you look like. It's so painful.
And he never gets to open that suitcase.
Never.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think about a couple of things in this episode. One is, maybe if his adoptive parents had told him much earlier, there may have been a different path to relationship or healing. We'll never know, because that's not how it was written. I also think, wow, to your point, Kristal, this mom we see in the episode feels so real. I also think that is one storyline. The writers could have written a different storyline. They could have written a more complicated storyline. But they chose to make this woman a little heartless. And in my opinion, if you have to choose a villain for this episode, it's easily her and how she's portrayed. And I think that's another thing that frustrated me about this episode overall, because it seeks to oversimplify, which we talk about so much on this pod, that the three of us and adoptees generally are forced to hold 2 truths and 3 truths and 6 truths at one time. But this episode's gonna push us in one direction. There can only be one real mother, and that's Mrs. Handelman.
I want to tell you what my kids thought about this episode now. So my kids at the time of recording are 11 and 13. And they, like me, didn't really laugh. I think there was a couple laughs. There's a storyline about camp. There was a couple laughs about the youngest daughter, but nothing about the adoption. And my kids are pretty well indoctrinated because they live in my house. One of them said, "Oh, his birth mother was mean." And I asked Isaiah, my older, I was like, "What do you think the point of this episode was?" And he said, "To say that the adoptive parents are the real parents and they're better than his other mother." And I said, "And what do you think about this language, these real parents?" I'm like, "What does that imply?" "Oh, that the other mother is fake." I mean, they got it. And this storyline of the mom being stern with him. She says, I think Skippy's, he's definitely overeager. He's 15 years old. To do this as a child on your own, this is tough. I'm picturing me when I had my reunion in my early 20s. I also was overeager, and I had Nick with me, and I felt very like I did want to connect, and it was too quick. And we also met the same day as I emailed her.
Can we stick on that for just 1 second though, Haley?
Yeah.
Because the reason why Skippy has gone and Alex drove him and not his adoptive parents is because he was protecting their feelings. Right when he asks Alex to drive him, they say, "What isn't your parent? Won't your parents drive you?" And he says, "I can't ask them to do that." He's protecting them, the adults. That's why he's alone.
Yeah, he's
with
totally
this.
alone.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I wanted to point that out.
Well, and he's asking about he says mom. He calls her mom. He's asking about these. He wants to know all the things. So how was their first time together, and do you remember that? And like all of these, he wants all these things, and kind of trying to plan the next visit, which I totally get. I still feel that when my dad leaves, I'm like, when's the next time I'm going to see him? Like, I still feel that. And we're like 13 years in. His birth mom says, "I think it's best you don't come visit me again. I can't become a mother just like that." And she talks about this disruption for both their lives. And this really is to put a period on, okay, they hid the adoption, but now everybody knows, and he met his mom, so his questions are answered, and now he can put a period on it, and we can just get back to his real parents, his real family, and yeah. Oh, I did forget one thing my kids thought was funny. They thought it was funny when his mom said to him, his birth mom said to him, "I wanted you to grow up with a dog." And he says, "I didn't have a dog. I got a sister." And she was like, "Oh, that sounds nice." And then he's like, "I'd rather have a dog." Fair.
You spoke earlier of Skippy being, sort of cast as the moron. And I think the innocence of him when he goes to meet his birth mother, it is exactly how I was, like, so clueless, like no awareness that this perhaps could have been a painful experience for her. No warning that it could go bad. I could have used some therapy through that. After I met her was when I began to drink and use drugs. And that was when I really started, and it was so unconscious. But now I can make the connection that was so, that the feelings were so difficult. I didn't know how to cope with them. Can we talk about the term real parent?
Oh my God, please.
We've talked about what people's responses have been when we've told them that we're adopted, right? And a lot of people have said, "Oh, do you know your real mom?" Okay. When I was doing some research before I began filming my documentary, I chatted with an adoptive mother who was also a psychologist, and she had adopted a small child, and he was 5 at the time. And he went to school, told someone he was adopted, and they said, "Do you know who your real mother is?" And he went to her, and she's telling me this story, and said, "Mom, do you know who my real mom is? Who's my real mom?" And I also asked my adoptive mom this. And they had a choice to be honest with us. They knew damn well what we were asking for, who we were asking about. And they chose to say, "I'm your real mom." And that's an example. That's just one example, I think, of the mind fuckery that goes on for an adoptee. That was a great opportunity to talk about what real meant, like you did with your kids, Haley. I don't like that term anymore. In fact, at the end of my film, my husband talked about true family. And I have since cut that out because I disagree with that language so much. And we actually had a debate about that after watching this this episode together. He looked up what true family meant, and it basically was like chosen family, the people that care for you and all of that. But
yeah, I'm with you, Kristal. I despise if there's any single word in like the adoption world that I hate the most, it's real. And in fact, the penultimate scene of this episode, you see again this comedic back and forth between Skippy and Alex, and they are having a conversation about Skippy's birth mother and his adoptive mother, but they are both interchangeably using the words real mother. And it goes on. And it goes back to what I said before. You know, society demands you only have one. You're only allowed one. And so you have to name them and you have to pronounce them. And oh, by the way, it actually can't be whoever you consider mom, whether it's one person or two people or three people or a stepmom or an aunt or whatever. It can't be those. It has to be whomever the person who's asking you that invasive question believes the answer should be, which is lunacy and inappropriate. And so to me, I think when I think about like, okay, well, who's real? What's the definition of real? What's the word? I think adoptees, each individual adoptee is entitled, and we are individually the only ones entitled to put a name to or a title or a moniker to whomever in our family we can choose. Whether that's one person we call mom, again, whether it's 4 people we call mom, whatever, like that's it. And I would abolish the term real completely.
like, I think we sometimes have this idea that, well, if you do the work, then you deserve the title, like you've earned the title. But I think society wants to comfort adoptive parents because they see the threat that the adoptive mother in particular may have. And so they want to comfort them by saying, but you're the real mother. You've done all the work. You deserve it all.
I will speak only for me, but I do know other adoptees feel this way as well. I feel like, I'm the one who gets to define what mother is for me. It's not some woman who gets to define. Some woman can define what a daughter is to her completely. But like, I get to define what mother is to me. And it may be a different definition than yours, Kristal, or yours, Haley. But that also doesn't make either of your definitions any less valid at all. That's how I think about it anyway.
Well, and if you think about it at the societal or the legal level, the fictionalized birth certificates that we receive literally places our adoptive parents on as mother and father. And what's more real than a legal document? And so I think that language comes from that. Like, that's the real one, the one on the birth certificate. Well, we have 2. Some of us have more than 2. And I like the idea that adoptees get to choose their own language. I agree with that. And I think the word earlier, Kristal, you said chosen family. We didn't get a choice in adoption. And so to call our adoptive family our chosen family has to be a choice we come to at a later date. I think of my chosen family as, the good, dear friends that I surround myself with and that instead of my adoptive family or my biological family and those kinds of things. So language is so fraught, and that's why, especially in adoption. And so I love that call of Sullivan of like, we get to pick our own language and what feels right to us. And I tell you, when my kids can suss out that, what does real imply, as like, yeah, that's what it's meant to do.
Given all of this talk about real, Haley, I think you should give a fake award.
Okay. Before I give my award, I do feel a need to distinguish the language we're using here on Adoption Pop. And, this is a real award I have given. This is a real award I have given. This is a real award I'm about to hand out.
Holding up trophies for listeners.
I work hard on acquiring these awards, and I think of them as though they're my own. And, we're not like other shows who make up fake awards and try and pretend they're naturally occurring or feel the need to test their biological provenance. They haven't been a part of giving awards out like we have for 19 episodes. They had no role in nurturing these awards or molding them or caring for them like we have. And all they did was create a baby show, and they had no part in creating the real human being show. That's Adoption Pop. And I love these awards, and they're some of the most important things in my life, and I care about these awards, and that makes them as real as I am. So in honor of LFO's Summer Girls, which is a very real song, and the first time I ever heard about him, I'm awarding the It's a Real Adoption Propaganda speech to Alex P. Keaton, because at the end of the episode, he gives a speech very much in line with what I just did to prove to Skippy that his Handelman parents are his real parents, and that's it. They're getting a real trophy. Listeners, viewers, and pop stars, we would love to hear from you. What award would you give to Baby Boy Doe of Family Ties, or to a character on the film? And do you have a trophy collection as big as me? Leave your comments for us on Instagram or YouTube. Adoption Pop is podcast journalist Haley Radke,
filmmaker Kristal Parke,
and cultural critic Sullivan Summer. In researching this episode, we relied on Lauren Novak's Whatever Happened to Mark Price, Family Ties, Skippy, and Dr. Amanda Baden's Delaying Adoption Disclosure, a survey of late discovery adoptees.
If you like what we do, drop us a rating in your podcast app, find and follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and let us know what you want us to cover in future episodes.
Join us next week for another episode of Adoption Pop.